is this presentation will be recorded. So I've just started the recording now. Everybody will receive a copy of this presentation later today or tomorrow. You will receive a link for the recording, and you will also receive a PDF of the PowerPoint that Tom and John. So just before I get into introducing our speakers to you and handing it over to them, we want to again thank our sponsors, Blue Drop Training and Simulation and Canadian Truck Warranty. And we have a brief video here that we'll play from Canadian Truck Warranty about their company. I'm going to stop my video and mute myself, and we'll play that video, and I will be right back.
Hi, I'm Paul D'Onofrio, CEO of Canadian Truck Warranty. I want to start off by saying thank you so much to the women and men in the Canadian trucking industry. You've done so much for us and continue to. That's why we've got you covered with a Canadian warranty built for Canadian truck drivers in Canada. We are a Canadian company proudly serving Canadian truck drivers with our great warranty from Class 3 to Class 8. We service fleets and owner-operators. We speak your language, we understand your business, and we've got you covered.
Thanks, Paul, for that message. And again, thanks to Paul D'Onofrio and Canadian Truck Warranty for sponsoring this seminar today, along with Blue Drop Training and Simulation. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker for today's webinar. Our speaker is Tom Lauder from Blue Water Learning Networks. He's the Vice President of Business Development. They are extremely invested in workforce development and the upskilling, reskilling of Canada's workforce. Tom secured one of the country's first regional workforce programs at an ecosystem level. This technology has since expanded to simultaneously serve workers, employers, training providers, industry associations, governments, and inspectors in 6 Canadian provinces and in several jurisdictions around the world. Over the past 15 years, Tom has formed strong relationships with governments and industry associations across Canada and around the world, all with the focus of helping people find a job, keep a job, and stay safe and compliant while on the job. Or coming to Blue Drop, Tom managed events in the education, entertainment, and sporting fields at some of the most recognized and prestigious venues in the country. Tom is committed to working with PMTC members. The vitally critical transportation and supply chain sector continues to evolve and change at lightning pace. So please welcome Tom. So Tom, we're going to stop screen sharing at this end. If you want to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. Are you there? I can see you.
Okay, there you are.
And if you want to share your screen, Tom, I will turn my video off and mute myself. And I'll be here in the background if anything goes wrong. And if you have any questions, and when you're through, I'll come back on live and moderate any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Tom.
Not sure if we'll need 45 minutes, but when Sean gets talking, we might actually need more. So I'll let you know. I'm
gonna need 45 minutes just for my bio, actually.
Oh yes, and Sean, you did not send me a bio of you, so if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, you can provide your own bio, Sean.
Yeah, I'm just teasing. So Tom will lead us through today. I am Sean Ryan. I'm with Blue Drop as well. I'm in the marketing department, so I'm just here to support Tom and participate today. So happy to be here.
And we us here in Newfoundland and Labrador now, that's where myself and Sean are located. We are, I guess, somewhat different than a lot of the rest of the country in that we're just now facing the realities of COVID-19. We certainly all went through the lockdown early last year, in March and April and so on. but then in a lot of ways, life resumed as normal for the working a lot of the people here in the province, and we had to we were privileged to enjoy some of the the perks of going to work and stores and restaurants and so on. But it has caught up with us. The variant is here in the province now, and we're in full-on lockdown now. So just a long way to say, if 1, 2, or 3 children come storming in at any point in time, apologies in advance, but that's the reality of which we're all faced with, I guess, or a lot of us are faced with right now. I will share my screen here, and hopefully, okay. No, wonderful. Now, Sean, can you see that? I'll put it in present mode.
You're good.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Okay, so we'll get going. Yes, and again, thank you to Canadian Truck Warranty as well for co-sponsoring the event. My life previously, in the event sponsorship or the event planning world, sponsors of events are key to keep things going along. So we certainly appreciate Canadian Truck Warranty as well for co-sponsoring the event here. So we wanted to approach this, from a fairly high level. We'll drill down in a couple areas, but in terms of what we wanted to do today, we wanted to talk about how technology can be used to deploy, maintain third-party training credentials, and I think to do that, it involves getting a little bit into the trends, and then maybe opening up, hopefully some opportunities that you may not have known were out there, or might not have thinking about what might be possible. So it's going to be fairly high level. We're not pretending in any way to be experts in this sector. We work with groups such as Mike's group and other subject matter experts in every field that we work in. But we do have a lot of experience in working with industry, liaising with governments and other stakeholders to bring together solutions around finding people, helping people find work and getting people to stay safe or compliant on the job, and using technology, not just e-learning, but all sorts of different technology to help make that happen. So again, thanks for everyone on the call, and thank you for the sector in general for what you're doing as we work through this pandemic and really keeping the economy moving. You're really literally providing a lifeline as we work through this. And at the same time as COVID happens, life goes on. Regulations are still coming. Regulations are changing. New technology gets introduced. Driver shortages are still happening. So the needs and the realities faced in the sector are as real as they ever were. And COVID-19 just amplifies these in a lot of ways, for sure. So we're going to provide a little bit of overview on the context of why technology might be useful or might be needed, and some of this I believe will not be new information, so we're not going to dig in, but certainly we can address these through questions later if you want to talk about them in more detail. We'll review on us, just a couple minutes on what we do and how we help address some of these solutions, understanding, of course, that there are a lot of players out there that you might currently work with, whether they be colleges or other training providers, other not-for-profits, or so on, to help you through this. So we certainly understand that. And then we'll talk about how, some of the industry and government initiatives, some that we're a part of and others that we're not a part of, that are coming, that are in place to help industry respond to workforce trends. So the context, as we look at the need for technology and what's going on in the sector, the trucking, transportation, and supply chain sectors, are no strangers to using technology, of course, and in not just in training, but obviously in lots of different ways. But some key trends that are happening that we're involved in, and some that we're not involved in. The mandatory entry level training programs that, standard 16 of CCMTA is very real. All provinces are working to develop a standard and implement a standard and roll that out through industry, through provincial associations, through government ministries or departments, through training providers, of course, in a way that works for the realities faced by the sector. The reality is that new drivers are needed. At the same time, the importance of safety and bringing in these standards is key. But how to do this in a way that's going to keep people still interested in the field, maybe provide opportunities for new Canadians and so on. There's a lot to really consider as the MELT program gets implemented. Continued driver shortage and implications on recruitment and English as a second language. Use of incentives in the field continues to evolve. Obviously, technology everywhere, from logging devices and training. Using technology to provide easy access to just-in-time training to complete during downtimes or in places that have Wi-Fi connections and so on. COVID-19 fallout, of course. How to make sure that drivers and I would say carriers and shippers and receivers and so on understand the realities of COVID-19, how to work to protect against COVID-19 and make sure you are doing everything possible from a preventative nature, but then also what's needed through technology to demonstrate that you've taken training, or that you have maybe a vaccine, down the road. You have that credential that allows you access to a work site. All these things are considerations and important trends to look out for. Regulation, I guess that's kind of really addresses the first point as well, but there are more regulations around what is an independent contractor, for example. I know that's really big in the US. Drug and alcohol policies, electronic logging devices, COVID maybe with vaccines, MELT, and so on and so on and so on. So where e-learning is interesting, and again, the sector is no stranger to e-learning, is e-learning as a way to get information out there, and not just from an awareness perspective, but actually from an application perspective as well. E-learning is very powerful. It has grown, for early 2000, 900%, continues to grow, and it has really went through a big spike in the last year, given people staying at home or not being able to access traditional training centers. So we have seen that increase in e-learning. There are an increase in retention rates that through peer-reviewed studies have shown that from e-learning can increase retention rates 25 to 60%. And e-learning itself takes roughly 50%, 40 to 60% less time than classroom training. So it represents some real cost savings as well. And 67% right now of people, that number, continues to grow, use mobile devices to access learning. So it's technology is growing and becoming more accessible, more readily available as Wi-Fi improves, as well as access improves. So learning opportunities really are available anywhere, anytime. That, I think, a caveat here, we need to say that e-learning or micro-learning, micro-credentials, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of these means of training are very, very powerful, but it's not replacing classroom training. It can, a blended approach when you're talking about things vitally important with life and safety, like with safety matters, life and death matters. Classroom training, there is a place for instructor-led training as well. So, really what we're talking about in many ways is how to implement a blended approach that still gets the best elements of classroom training, and the best elements allows you to open up recruitment opportunities or access opportunities or cost savings opportunities through the use of technology. Anything, I know, Sean, you've done some work on this. Anything to add on this particular area?
No, I think you've covered it. I think obviously, and it's probably no shock to anyone here that these numbers are growing, and I think it's going to be a continuing opportunity and challenge for organizations and industries such as the one we're in here today, to continue to kind of align their training needs with the desire and the expectations of the user. And I think the efficiencies gained by it obviously align with this sector. And given the mobility of the workforce, literally the mobility of the workforce, and then obviously the changes within the workforce, it's really important, I think, to find those efficient ways to deliver the training to allow you to increase your resource pool and the opportunity to get new employees and new staff, and then subsequently get them trained quickly and efficiently. So I don't think there's any shock there, but I think it's important to level set on the importance of kind of looking for whatever the training is you're driving at, whether it be, obviously, truck driving training or just any operational training that relates to your particular business. Finding solutions like this is going to be key.
Thank you. Just a little bit about us, in terms of this, we set the stage, a little bit about us. We are in the field, obviously, of training. We've been doing custom online learning programs since the mid-90s. We have our training system that delivers, an ecosystem approach to training. We've been doing that for oh my goodness, probably 15 years now. Working with various industry sector councils, industry associations, and governments, not-for-profits across the country and around the world. Very, very high importance placed on privacy, security, accessibility, and so on. And our government and large customers demand that, obviously, to as a way of it's one thing to get people trained quicker and sometimes cheaper and all that, but you got to make sure that it's done in a safe way that protects people's private information, that allows people to access it, and is compliant from an accessibility perspective and security perspective, and so on. We have around 200 people working for Blue Drop. Blue Drop Learning Networks is based out of St. John's, where myself and Sean are. Blue Drop Training and Simulation is based out of Halifax, and that group does a lot of simulation and training with the military, other technical training, and works with large OEMs such as Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and so on, in areas right from classroom training to computer-aided instruction to e-learning, right to augmented reality as well, and simulation for various aircraft systems. And we work with Army and Navy as well, so on lots of programs there with Department of National Defense and other departments of defense around the world. Blue Drop Learning Networks, we really we're an e-learning first to market leader, as we talked about, and we track we work at an ecosystem level really to track how different clients deliver, track, and validate training for their external stakeholders. So typically we don't work with one particular company to train employees of that company. We will work with jurisdictions. So we will work with, or sectors, so we'll work with a particular sector group that has, dozens or hundreds or thousands of employers or businesses in that group. And we work with tens of thousands of workers and dozens of training providers and hundreds of instructors and inspectors and so on. Everyone that has that view of helping people upskill or reskill or stay safe and compliant on the job. So the messier programs are kind of what we are involved in, where you have lots of different players, but all trying to support the same outcome of finding a job, keeping a job, or staying safe on the job. We work with 6 provinces. We've done national projects. We work around the world. And like I briefly said earlier, we work with a lot of different sectors, but when we invest in a sector, we take it very seriously, which is, we're working with PMTC on getting a COVID course out to its members. We have brought on Marcel Pouliot, who's worked with large trucking company with Trimac for years. We're working with SGI and Saskatchewan on their MELT program. We've done commercial drivers courses in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. We're working with the Atlantic trucking human resources sector through labor and advanced education. So lots of different things we're doing in the sector. And when we do it, we make sure that we bring in the right subject matter experts. We work with industry leaders in a way, and then we bring our expertise in how to get the right type of training out in the right type of way to meet the objectives. Talked about that a little bit, just at a high level, the ecosystem approach that we have to training. Pass it over to Sean here now, just to talk briefly about Skills Pass. Really, at a high level, Skills Pass is our technology that allows workers to have a just-in-time view of all training that they've received no matter where you receive the training. So we basically consolidate training from lots of different providers, put it on a worker passport, and then you have it as a way to verify that you can access a work site, that you have the right type of training necessary, and so on. Sean, is that enough for that, or if there anything?
I think you covered it. I mean, you're going to throw it at me, but you covered it great. I think the only thing I'd add is that the platform is obviously, as it's shown on the screen here, it's cloud-based. We deliver this, as Tom mentioned earlier, to mainly large government entities, agencies, industry associations, to then deploy to various employers within their sphere. So it's really about, as Tom mentioned, providing a technology solution as a service that allows broad-based employers and third-party trainees, folks that need training, to access training that's provided by any number of providers, whether it be, you could have access to, again, truck related training, other health and safety type training, COVID training. All these trainings could be in the marketplace on the platform, accessible to the employee or the worker. And then the key variable here is that all of those certificates that are gained are stored in that one worker passport, accessible online, available to show their employer or show their inspector if that's a variable in the industry at any given time, in real time. So there's no more pen and paper. There's no more waiting for your certificate to show up in the mail. You literally complete your training, you download your certificate, and you have a QR code and/or access to your account where you can access your training certificates and completions at any given time. So we won't get into a whole lot of salesy detail on it, but that's just the concept of how Skills Pass works and how we leverage it in the various industries.
So we wanted to take you through a few different initiatives that governments that industry associations are working on. Some of these are trucking related or transportation related, but some aren't. But just to show how various programs of various jurisdictions are utilizing technology right now to help keep people safe, are compliant, or to upskill and reskill. Upskilling and reskilling is not just the catchword of the day, but as industry trends change very quickly, not just because of COVID, but because of automation and other trends. There is a need to reskill whole and upskill whole segments of different workforces. Trucking certainly is one area where training has evolved. But other areas such as banking and finance and so on have real needs for upskilling, reskilling opportunities. So we'll do this pretty quickly, probably 4 or 5 different examples. This one is the government of Ontario investing in really centralizing mandatory health and safety training. So in this case, they use our technology for everything right from triaging and approving training providers and curriculum, providing a virtual marketplace for health and safety training across the province, providing a way for training providers to enter in the information and then generate a certificate of completed training, which then goes to a worker passport. And so really, before this, we had, the paper-based cards, so the wallet cards that people had. People were losing them, and then they couldn't access a work site. So their productivity was cut. People were losing wages, and so it was costing industry, a lot. It was causing a lot of frustration and costing a lot of money. Because the process was a training provider would complete the training, then they would put completed training on a jump drive. They would send that through the mail to the ministry, who would then manually enter it into one system, and then had to go into another system, and that process could take months. So just to show that you have a valid credential, a valid working at heights credential, or a valid health and safety committee training credential, and so on. So this whole process of managing, of eliminating the wallet card and putting it onto a instant credential, an instant worker passport that's viewable by the employer and shareable by the worker, and so on. This is happening all over the place, as many of you probably know. So this is just one example. I talked about upskilling and reskilling in general. Because of COVID, of course, the hospitality sector hit very heavily. So, in some cases, people want to retain the workers they have and are using this opportunity to upskill them in certain areas, so that when the work comes back, they have the new skills needed to better serve in that particular occupation or new occupation, but within that sector, within the same employer. And in other cases, jobs are going away, which is very unfortunate, but there's a need for reskilling, but figuring out what skills you have that are transferable and seeing where there are gaps and upskilling in those areas. So this process brings people from the tourism and hospitality sectors into an environment, figure out the transferable skills through an intake, provide real-time support, real-time upskilling and reskilling opportunities as well. So this is one that's being piloted in Ontario and will be rolled out nationwide as well through OTEC. And they're using lots of different training providers across the province, using our technology and other technology as well to manage and facilitate the process. This is one that we're not involved with, but you folks here on the call might know well. Mike would certainly know it through as a supporter of this project. But this is a Future Skills Initiative project. So Future Skills is a great a great way to look at trends that are happening in the workforce, trends that are happening that affect how people work into the future, and try to adjust and pilot initiatives around the new world of work. So this is one that's being trialed in Atlantic, but being I guess supported by multiple groups across the country, including PMTC. Another one is the Association of Industry Sector Councils in Nova Scotia. So they are using technology to really offer. I think there's 13 or 16 sector councils in Nova Scotia. Each of them have an opportunity to utilize technology through a government-funded program to utilize technology to facilitate, again, opportunities for upskilling and reskilling, whether it be classroom training or e-learning, webinars as well. Can be managed through through technology, and e-learning can be developed as part of this as well. So this is just different provinces, different initiatives that are happening. Belt standard obviously is one that is being driven by regulation, so not so much around the need to upskill or reskill. This is regulation that has been unfolding for multiple years, but provinces now by I believe 2023 will be rolling out a MELT program in each of their jurisdictions, and it may be done differently depending on the jurisdiction, but the standard will be very, very similar. But how it gets rolled out, whether it be directly through an association like an industry in the provincial association, or directly through the ministry, or through private or other training providers, I guess that remains to be seen. Technology can play and likely will play a key part in that. We know that for example, we're working to develop an e-learning standard in Saskatchewan. We've done that in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Other providers are working with other provinces around in-yard and in-cab training associated with MELT to do with virtual reality and augmented reality. So there's a lot going on in that area for sure. I'll pass it over to Sean to quickly talk about the COVID initiative that we've done. We'll keep this pretty quick here, but I think it's another example of how industry industry often has to bring together, if we're talking at a shipper or receiver level, they have a lot of subcontractors, a lot of carriers to manage. So a COVID course, for example, is one way in which we're working with PMTC already. You can sign up as a company, and then you can invite your employees or your subcontractors into your network to show that you've completed a course. So COVID is one example, but that can happen for any regulatory or in any compliance related course or standard or so on that you need to demonstrate to safely work or to be compliant to access a work site. So Sean, I'll pass it over to you for a minute or so.
Yeah, I'll just quickly, because I think you hit some of the high points there. I think, as related to the COVID course, Blue Drop obviously as a training provider and a e-learning solutions and a platform provider, we saw an opportunity to provide training and provide value back to obviously communities and organizations we work with. The opportunity really is to say, how can we quickly get training out to folks from a workforce standpoint? And when we looked at it, we saw that there was a lot of guidelines coming from the federal government, from provincial governments around COVID safety, but not a lot of specific workforce training. So we worked with some experts, former deputy health ministers out of Ontario, deputy health minister for Canada itself, to build the course. And the real value here for us was to show how we could get that out quickly. It wasn't believe it or not, it wasn't a revenue generating opportunity for us. It was really providing the training on the existing platform and providing to organizations that we work with to get it out to their employees. The value for us really comes in showing how the platform can be used to do exactly that, to Tom's point, to get training out to folks quickly. The notion of providing a COVID course quickly from a traditional standpoint and training standpoint, organizing and scheduling training, getting folks in a room or onto Zoom calls and so on, we can all appreciate that that's complex and time consuming, as opposed to loading a course onto an existing platform, giving people access via an email and allowing them to do the course, which is exactly how the program works. So really, again, SkillsPass works in this fashion, as you see on the screen, regardless of the training. But for the COVID program, once we had the course developed and loaded, it was really a matter of making folks aware that it was available, working with organizations like PMTC to let them know that it is available, get it out to their members as they deem appropriate. And from an organizational standpoint, it's really just a matter of registering for a free account, deploying the training, which can be done through an email, a link to the training course. Each individual person gets their account, does the training, and then goes through that process of getting their certificate and managing that and having their account. So again, it was really about getting the training out there, and we're continuing to do that. It's currently in 4 provinces, I believe, notwithstanding the various industry organizations across Canada that we have it in, but we're in Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. At the moment, thousands and thousands of course takes, lots of value being fed back to us in terms of doing that. So again, it's not a sales pitch in any way on the COVID course, but more of a commentary on the value of a platform when you're looking at training for your organization or your staff, to say, okay, when the next thing comes or the next training I need in order to keep my business going, how am I going to get that out there quickly? And the technology options available are really the key to that, as opposed to kind of that old traditional model of in-class or kind of hybrid approach to training. So we've had some great success with that. We're continuing to push the course out. There's other industry groups and provinces in discussions now to get this out, even though we all hope we're on the back end of the COVID, but clearly we're still in the midst of it now. And as we've seen and heard from employers, having this type of training completed is a long-term value to the business as they move forward, because who knows what's coming next, right? So having that discipline of having folks trained and having folks understand the risks around the viruses and so on is that itself is not going away. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And again, the proof point being that providing an online option allows you to expedite training delivery and training management for the organization, and tracking who's completing it and so on.
Thanks, Sean. And I'll quickly end here. A lot of this had to do with certain training opportunities, training that because of regulations or legislations, because of just the trends in the industry, and a lot of industries going through this, but industry trends in general create a need for upskilling and reskilling. But this one, there is going to be a need for how to manage the vaccine as well. It will be done. We're seeing lots of different ways in which it may be done at a federal level or at a provincial level. There's IATA is looking at it from an airport or different carriers' perspective, but how is this going to be done at a sector level? Who knows? So certainly there are technologies out there that can be utilized to manage the vaccine as a credential. So just like when you show up at a work site and you have to show that WMIS and TDG and so on, the same thing could be, are you vaccinated? So and a credential management system can show that you have to get a booster shot, or that this credential or this vaccine is no longer effective, so now it becomes expired, and so on. So there are things that we are looking at, but others are looking at as well, as this continues to evolve. So I thought I'd end with that, with from part of the COVID explanation, just so there are things that we're thinking about as COVID evolves. So just to finish here, one second here now. So yeah, I mean, just to briefly conclude here, as people to move towards online training or expanding online training, it does present ways to demonstrate compliance, further ways to demonstrate compliance that goes beyond the wallet card and so on. There are scalable opportunities, ways to work together from an industry perspective. So there are collaborative opportunities which can present cost savings opportunities as well, both from a way to pool resources, to leverage government funding, and also in terms of actually just taking a shorter amount of time to complete training. So lots of benefits here as we go forward. So again, I think technology can be utilized to bring together multiple parties. Investments are being made to help leverage technology with skills development and compliance. And we just wanted to explain a little bit about this and really see what and further the conversation and further the conversation with us or with other people that you work with around around leveraging technology and to ensure the sector can really continue to do what it does, provide that lifeline to Canadians and help us through these tough times as you're doing. So again, thank you for the opportunity here. Anything else, Sean?
No, I think that's good. I think just kind of looking at this last slide, I think you hit the nail on the head. But I think the point, whether it's us or others, I think organizations and industries really need to be looking at opportunities to streamline their training and more or as importantly, streamline the tracking and the management of training and credentials. And again, whether it's us or others, the need for pen and paper really is declining and should be declining. And there's efficiencies there to be gained to make training obviously a viable and required part of the business, but make it less of a core concern and worry. I mean, there's the online option and the technology available can simplify and streamline this such that it doesn't become the pain that I'm sure it is in some respects right now for organizations as they're trying to focus on their core business. And trying to manage their credentials and their staff and manage the turnover and the resource requirements as well. So it's out there. It's not something that's coming, it's here. So certainly we're happy to engage in any future dialogue we want to have and to learn a little bit more. We can certainly do that. Obviously we glossed over it at a high level there today. So again, thanks for the opportunity to chat with you guys today.
Okay, thanks everyone. We'll pass it back over to Mike, and we're here for questions, and that can come now or through Mike at a he can pass questions on or any comments on, and we'll get them back to him or to you directly. However Mike wants to do that, we're available. So I will stop the sharing here now.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
So, thanks, Sean and Tom. I mean, we do have one question so far, which I'll kind of answer myself. I think if there's any other questions, feel free to type them in or just type in there you have a question, and I can bring you off mute. I'll just say from our perspective, the reason PMTC got involved with Blue Drop and Skills Pass, Marcel reached out, Pouliot, that you mentioned in your presentation, and mentioned the COVID training that you guys were providing as a free resource for the industry to use and get involved. And ourselves, we had heard from other members because of various changing government restrictions. And, as we've seen the second wave, we're seeing that again. They get added, they get pulled down. So there's kind of confusion there. But the big thing was I think we call it at least I call it the Trump factor. There was a lot of misinformation out there being spread around by people in some high up positions, unfortunately, about what this disease could do, what it couldn't do, how it could be spread. And because it's new, a lot of companies just didn't have a training program set up. So I think the COVID training that you talked about, it's basic training, it's generic, but it's important training. It's a way to make sure all your employees are trained and know how the virus spreads and how it works, because there's a lot of misinformation about there how it does. And the best way to protect your workplace and your employees and the public is to make sure you know what you need to know so you can protect yourself and your coworkers. I think that's a very valuable resource that, in addition to your other offerings, but I think that's a very valuable resource at this time that if people haven't looked into that training and how easy it is to send around to your employees. I think that's something you may want to consider to make sure everybody in your organization is aware of what they need to be doing to reduce the spread. I have one question. Like I said, I think I'll answer it, and then you guys can ask if you want. What percentage of drivers have been vaccinated? And the answer to that is we have no idea. There's no staff. At this point, my guess would be the only drivers that have been vaccinated are ones that are in the high risk category for health, because so far, because of the limited amount of vaccines we've had delivered in this country to date, all the vaccinations to date, as they should be, have been dedicated to long-term care residents, long-term care and medical workers, and high-risk populations. So a driver may fit in one of those categories and they would have been vaccinated, but the drivers are not yet on a list in that priority. We're still at the very top level priority.
Sorry, Mike, is that happening from what you can see? I mean, I know there was an article earlier this week on that on CBC, I believe, but in terms of making it to a priority list, sector is pretty important to keep things moving, not just from a keep people working, but just to keep things going in general. So is that happening, or are you not sure?
We haven't been given any advice yet on that. We consult with federal government on a weekly basis. This is one of the topics that has been brought up. We have weekly calls with Transport Canada that we'd like to see drivers. Our messaging is we don't want to be selfish. We don't want drivers at the top of the list. We think the top of the list needs to be what they've done. It needs to be long-term care residents, people hospitalized from it, people, the workers that protect those long-term residents, and people in the vulnerable society. They have to be first at any level before we think of drivers. And then we think the drivers should come in the next couple tiers, the next level of tiers there. You can have some arguments who needs to be next. Should it be truck drivers or should it be law enforcement? We don't really want to get into saying this is more important than that and more important. We just stress to the government, this is an important sector, and you need to make sure we're high up on that next level beyond healthcare workers and vulnerable populations. Because so far we've managed our spread well. There's a lot of protocols in place in the trucking industry. Drivers are generally isolated as a rule for most of their day inside that cab. Lots of things have changed for deliveries. A lot of it's even contactless now. So drivers are able to reduce their chances of getting the virus by the nature of their job. However, some of them do deliver in high risk environments, right? So if we ever see a spread go through the supply chain, I think we know it'd have a pretty serious effect and would limit our ability to get what we need to make our lives comfortable. Somebody typed, don't you think drivers are at high risk like frontline workers? And I think I kind of answered that. I don't think drivers are as high in risk as frontline workers. And if you're talking at frontline workers by healthcare people, they have to actually be in the room with people with the virus on a regular basis. Truck drivers spend a lot of their day in the cab of the truck by themselves, and they don't have to interact with customers as much. And we've taken a lot of precautions since the start as an industry. If you share the truck with another driver, you're supposed to wear a mask if you can't stay 6 feet apart. If you drive the truck for one shift and somebody else drives in another shift, the truck is completely disinfected on the inside before the next driver gets into it. So there's been a lot of protocols taken. So I think we've managed the risk fairly well. But I mean, anybody who's out there working still at risk. That's kind of a long way to answer your question. It's been brought up to governments that we want to be on that Lex level and why we're important, but we got to get the most vulnerable done first, and the healthcare workers. We're in full agreement with that priority. And then, of course, the issue in Canada is too, the federal government doesn't make these decisions. Each province makes the decision as to how they're going to distribute vaccines and what their role is. Yeah. Any other questions out there? All right. Well, with that then, Tom, Sean, thank you. I want to thank Blue Drop for sponsoring. Paul D'Onofrio and Canadian Truck Warranty, thank you again for sponsoring. And thank you for everybody who took time out of their day to attend this webinar today. Our next webinar will be on March 17th. Details will be coming out shortly. The Traffic Industry Research Foundation will be doing a presentation on cognitive impairment and what the effects that it has on your safety out on the road. So details, like I said, will be out on that next week. Look forward to seeing you then. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.